you. It's on page 650. You have the Bible app. Proverbs is kind of right in the middle of the table of contents. In chapter 27, verse 17. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to spend 5 weeks in a sermon series called Life Verse. Life Verse, the idea behind Life Verse is that when you read the Bible, there's particular passages or verses that really speak to your heart, not just once, but multiple times over the years. And it's those verses that we kind of gravitate to in our mountaintop moments or in our valley moments. Those are the ones that we know by heart when that happens. So I've asked 5 different preachers to come join us over the next 5 weeks and share their life verse and what that verse means to them. And so our first speaker today is Kennedy. Kennedy is coming from California, but he lives in Easton, all right? Has a beautiful wife, 3 kids, many more on the way. So I just want to take the time to pray for Kennedy, and then Kennedy will jump up right here and begin our time together. Father God, we praise you that you have called certain people to come and preach your word. That it's not in the skills or in the speaking quality of the preacher that gathers your hearers, but it's in the fact that your Spirit is working through us, and your Spirit is working in our words, in what we have to say, that your Spirit is among us right now, calling us to follow you. Lord, I pray for Kennedy, that he would not find his worth in his speaking skills, but he would find his worth in you. That he would not be anxious or nervous about today, but that he would find full joy in what you've called him to do, knowing that he only needs approval from one person, and that's not me, and that's not this church, that's not this community, but it is you. And Lord, you have approved of him, because you've approved of him through your Son. Lord, give Kennedy the power this morning that hearts may be turned towards your way. Lord, we love you and we praise you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Can everybody hear me all right? Yeah. All right, awesome. Proverbs 27:17. Most people have heard this verse. Some of us may have memorized it. Some of us may have never heard it. But let me tell you a little bit as to why I even chose this verse as a life verse. One, I did not grow up in the church. I grew up anywhere near a church. I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I was raised in Oakland, California. Oakland, California is known for gun violence, robbery, you name it. The streets were bad, but so was my household. I was raised by an alcoholic mother, an alcoholic stepfather who abused her violently, which turned around and caused a lot of abuse for myself. So the streets started to raise me. So after my older brother was kicked out, it was easier for me to go out and hang out with him. Church wasn't really in the forefront of my mind. Many of us may have grew up that way. And sadly, in the same way that it took me so long to come before God and say, I'm done, there's so many things that hampered and chipped away at my character and changed things on the inside of me that God never wanted changed. It was the abuse that changed how I saw people. I stopped liking myself. I stopped enjoying company with people and started to become a loner. God didn't create us to be loners. He didn't create us to be alone. He didn't create us to have this tension when we get around people. He called us to be together. But when you're abused by the person that says she loves you, when you're abused by the person that birthed you, you start to change your perspective on how you receive that word love. Growing up, I saw probably the worst of humanity. But then, as crazy as it was, I joined the military. At 17 and a half, I found myself in Navy boot camp. With all the scars from my upbringing, I now came to be shaped in a way that didn't really create a man, but a machine. And some of us may be saying, well, how could the Navy on their boats shape a man to be a machine? Well, I went with the Marines as a Navy corpsman. I got to see the other side of humanity that most people couldn't even fathom on the battlefield of Iraq. Those images, that brotherhood, began to shape a young man, 21, 22, 23 years old, serving with a combat unit that every 7 months found themselves employed to something. So now I have these scars, and I thought they were actually beginning to heal. Because I started having these connections with men that I could go and do anything with. They had my back, so I thought. But within the fabric of that brotherhood, there's this ugliness. There's alcoholism, there's adultery, there's idolatry. There's a cowardice there that we have to become calloused of, so we no longer allowed or feel free enough to show our vulnerability, unless we're drunk. And it was in that time where I began to really wonder, where are my real friends? Where am I going to find people that are going to hold me accountable? I didn't want to become like my stepfather. I didn't want to become like my biological father. I didn't want to become like my mother or any of my uncles or even my older brother. And I didn't want to become like the staff NCOs or the officers that I served with. So though I was popular, though I did everything that every popular man could ever do, been there, done that, and more, I still found myself alone. I had different groups of friends that never intermingled. Anybody know that? That feeling? That friend can't be around that friend because that friend knows something about me that that friend doesn't, and I don't want them to know. And in the midst of that, it took a friend. It took some friends in Kuwait during a training out to sit down and tell me at 23 years old, Kennedy, you're the most loyal person I've ever met. You're the very best friend that I've ever met. But sadly, you wear masks around everybody. So what I may know of you may not be true of what they know of you. And until you take your mask off, you won't know who you are. A few years later, I got out of the Navy, drowning in alcoholism and doubt, fear, depression, physical aches and pains that wrecked my body. And I was done. I had come to the end of myself. I've come to the one place that I never wanted to get to. The place that I was so uncomfortable that I became uncomfortable in myself. Doing things that I had never done before. Hunting men down, jumping out of cars and being a part of gun violence. I'd never done that before. What am I doing? It took a friend, once again, to stop me in my tracks and ask me, what are you doing? And it was at that time that I finally gave in. My mind was wrecked, my body was wrecked, my spirit was all over the place. And I was headed to either prison or the grave. And I had to make a choice. So I ran, literally. After being a part of a drive-by, the next week I ran from Oakland, California to Southern California, where a family of believers took me in. And it was that Sunday, December 19, 2010, that I was sitting in a church similar to this, sitting in the very back row, with every tissue in the church covered in snot. That the pastor gave an invitation that changed my life forever. I walked down that aisle, not holding on to anything, because I had nothing. I didn't have a place to stay, I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything. But the one hope that I had was that this God that I had heard about could do something. I gave my life to Christ that day. Nothing changed. Still depressed, still hurt, still lost. But that church every year fasted. And I knew how jacked up I was. So I fasted a week early. Christmas of 2010, I started fasting. For 35 days I fasted, prayed, read my Bible, I tried. You ever read the Bible and it just didn't make sense? You just read and reread and read and reread and you get different translations and it just doesn't make sense. 4 to 8 hours a day I would labor in the Bible and not get through one chapter. Because shame and hurt and discouragement and depression were attacking me all at the same time. And somebody said, try reading the book of Proverbs. It's a book of wisdom, written by the wisest man that ever walked the earth. Give it a try. Read about his observations about life and what he has learned from the gift that he was given, which was God wisdom. And this man Solomon learned how to live better than anyone. But if anyone's familiar with this story, he forgot the wisdom. He did away with the things that he wrote. But we were left with a great book. And I got to the book of Proverbs and got down to chapter 27, and I got to verse 17 and something crazy happened. It clicked. The words stood up off the page. And those words became the very first words that I ever memorized. It simply says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. And then I started to question that. Because my idea of friendship had already been completely tarnished. My best friend that I went to Iraq with committed suicide after he got back. So I no longer had that. The friends I grew up with were still on the same block selling drugs and toting guns. Are they really my friends? The guys that I served with would so quickly take from me and not be able to give to me. So is that really a friend? And I started to really study. And I started to really think about, okay, well, if iron sharpens iron, I need to find iron. And what is iron? Iron and iron, these are similar materials. And if I call myself a man of God, then I need other men of God. I need a family of God. But I can't do it from a distance. Many of us have dealt with broken hearts and people that have mistreated us or hurt us in one way or another, and it's hard for us to get close. But this simple proverb tells us, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. We have to get close. I don't know what you're saying. Well, how can you get close to someone you don't trust? I'm going to give you guys a nugget of wisdom that I've gotten this week for laboring over this. This is what set me free. When you get to be a part of the family of God, you no longer have to worry about trusting people. Because if iron is here and iron is here and they're this close, there's only one person that's holding those two and rubbing them together, and it's not us, it's God. God's doing the rubbing. God's bringing us together to do things that He wants to see. It takes submission, yes. It takes humility, yes. But it also takes a choice. That choice is not to trust Pastor Dustin, to trust me, or even your spouse. It's to trust God. Even with your spouse. Me and my wife are so different. And many times, I sit and look at her and I'm like, she is really rubbing me crazy. But see, I was a really harsh man. And I needed a woman that could rub me right to make me gentle. My pastor in California, he didn't know what discipline was as far as taking someone's word and teaching them with what they have said through the wisdom of God. All he knew was, this is what the word says, do it. But I learned from that. The way he taught me rubbed me to always focus on God's word. It's this rubbing that happens, the friction, the heat that comes from the closeness, the vulnerability that begins to shape and mold us into exactly who God's called us to be. See, we need bits and pieces of each other to actually fill in some of those holes. That hole that my mother created when she abused me. I needed mothering. And that happened in the family of God. My father walked out on me, and then my stepfather walked in, and he was abusing my mother, and I got to see these weird images of abuse growing up. I needed to be fathered. But it couldn't be from a harsh man, because I already knew what that was like. So my pastor in California showed me what gentleness looked like. And he started to patch those in. God, throughout my life, put people in my life to literally add to me what I needed, or take off what didn't need to be there. But as a church, look around. Who are you sitting next to? Many times we come into a church setting and we don't think about the truth of a verse like this. We sit apart because we're like, I need to get what's being said. I'm here to tell you that your closeness with someone makes the word of God come alive. I knew that I was coming to the right place because Pastor Dustin was reading a verse that I was going to touch on. When I got to Easton and I started reaching out to the pastors in the area, it was Dustin. Let's go have some coffee. He started to show me things about Easton that I had never known. History about Easton and just the Eastern Shore that I had no idea about. He doesn't look like me. He's younger than I am. He didn't come from my background. Matter of fact, me and him would have stayed apart from each other. That relationship started to work things in me, out of me, and vice versa. And sometimes we forget that our tragedy may be someone else's triumph. Our heartache and pain may be the exact band-aid that someone needs. See, we got through it. We all have testimonies in here. And if we shared our testimonies in the way that God has actually called us to do it, we would all walk out of here singing hallelujah. We would be able to sing, how great is our God. We would be able to say, holy, holy, holy. How great is our God that he brought all these different backgrounds, all these different contexts, all this different history together in this one place to say, you know what? I love you so much that I gave my only begotten son. And guess what? I love them so much as well. So many times we want answers, and it doesn't come from the pulpit. Because the answers come in the life that we live with one another. We want to see changes in our households, in our communities, in in our churches, in the body of Christ, we have to get to a place of getting close. There has to be a closeness. There has to be a point in our lives where we say, I'm done running away from other people. Because you're really not running away from other people. You're running away from the thing that looks like you. Or you're running away from the thing that you're afraid of. And God uses those things to change our lives. In closing, this is all I want you guys to get. If nothing else stirred you, nothing else moved you. This is what I have learned, and I hope that you're able to get something from this wretched man. The one thing that I have learned in following Christ is the Christian grind is tough. Life is tough. But through the Spirit of God, it produces the character needed to run this race faithfully. The fellowship between believers has the power to destroy yokes, and I'm a walking testimony of that. Will you let God use people to transform you into the image that He created you to be? I know Pastor prayed. But the question has been given for you to meditate on. But I'm going to pray. And this is a little different. This is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to get close to someone. So if there's a gap, and sorry, but kids don't count at this point. Because kids need to see us as adults doing what works. So if you're not sitting next to someone, go sit next to someone. If you don't mind. If you are sitting next to someone, and your shoulder isn't touching that person, you're not close enough. Because I'm telling you this is what I'm telling you. If you will get close enough so that they can become eyes for you to help you see, there will be people behind you watching your back in ways that you've never had before. Like, I need Dustin because there's parts of me that I can't see. I need my wife because there's parts of me I can't see. Even my children help me to see parts of me. So as I pray, I want you to ask God to open up your hearts to fellowship. Fellowship is overused in the church. Let me explain to you what fellowship is. It's how the book of Acts paints the picture of how the church gathered together under one teaching, under one word, through prayer and togetherness. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your word. I would be absolutely nothing without you. Thank you so much for the people that you brought alongside me. When I was running from you, Father, there were people that you would bring into my life to just knock me back on track. As I walk with you, you continue to bring people alongside me to show me what it means to live life holy. Father, these that are here, I don't know what the hang-ups are, but you do. I don't know where the hurts and pains are, but you do. Father, you've called us to be on one accord. You've called us to be in fellowship, one with another, in the Spirit of God. So, Father, by your Spirit, touch our hearts. Create in us a clean heart. Renew a right spirit within us. Give us a new heart. Remove this stone-filled heart, this heart that is so hardened that nothing can get in, and give us a heart of flesh that is filled with your Spirit, that can be shaped and molded and made right. Father, you knew us before we were shaped in our mother's womb. You knit us together. You birthed us through sin, into sin. And as we've been shaped in sin and iniquity, parts of our character, parts of our heart, parts of our minds and our spirits have been distorted, polluted, and diluted. So, Father, wash us and we'll be clean. Purge us so that we begin to walk in the fullness of your Spirit. Holy Spirit, come. Father, your word says that if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask God. Father, we need wisdom to live this life skillfully and in a manner that will be pleasing to you. Bring us closer. Make it clear as to who we are and whose we are as we operate in the fullness of the call. Forgive us for wanting to be a loner when you have not created us to be alone, but to be a part of a body. And Father, for those that are here today, that have wounds that have been inflicted by people, I pray in your Spirit would guide a gentle soul into their lives, to teach them and to love them and to live with them in your love. Thank you, God. We thank you for oneness, unity, harmony, and fellowship in you through Jesus Christ. And it is in his mighty name that we do pray and thank you. Amen.
Sings my soul, then sings my soul.